All right, so we are back again with the Edmonton ROI podcast. We have Megan Conover, I believe the director of partnerships over at Ancero. I came into contact with Ancero through a recommendation through Talaris, actually, for an opportunity that I had brought up. And the reason why I invited them on was after a few conversations, I sort of got the sense that they're the type of people that I would like to be working with, and particularly because the opportunity that I brought to the table, which is a very sizable opportunity, probably the largest I've worked to date as an independent business owner, is something that they turned down because they said it doesn't really fit into their wheelhouse, which is something that I greatly appreciate. And it is sort of a characteristic that not everyone shares. And I wanted to hear more about what it is exactly that they do, why they make those sorts of decisions and lean into the support model that they have, because it is something that is stand out and very clear by the decisions that they make with their partners. So with that, I will hand it over to Megan to give herself and Ancero an introduction.
Yeah, thank you so much, Daniel. It's a pleasure to be here today. Like you said, my name is Megan Conover. I am our Director of Partner Programs here at Ancero. I started at Ancero back in summer of 2017 with absolutely no IT background, no channel experience, no sales experience. I really try, and part of what is so great about Ancero is we want to work with the agents and help empower them without being overly technical. And we want to, because we support small business, we're mostly dealing with non-technical people. So we really try to pride ourselves on simplifying the complex world of technology so that anybody can understand it, that they're not being thrown a bunch of acronyms and being, talked at and talked down to for things that they probably don't understand. So for us, and especially me coming into this role, I always try to put myself back in those shoes of how would somebody explain this to me in a way that I would be able to understand prior to being in this industry for as many years as I have been. And it's part of how we really try to build our trust with both our partner community and with our customers so that they feel as though, to Daniel's point, that we're in good hands, that we can help them understand this complex world of technology and really be a true partner to them rather than just another vendor.
And that also brings me back to one of the way you were describing how you approach partnerships and how you approach agents and, being more of the business level, personal level, more so than the IT and technical level. Of course, these are the services that you provide, but that's not how you get to providing them. When you're speaking with an individual that's non-technical and has, a business outcome they're trying to achieve and a use case that they don't quite understand the technology, you're there to help them, implement that. But your role as a partner, director, as well as with working with the agents, is not to go over the bits and the bytes and stuff like that. It fill in those blanks when they're requested, of course, and differentiate yourself based off technologies. But it's being human, solving problems, and helping people and listening. And that's something that was a standout in our conversation. I think we kind of, getting introduced to each other went over our journeys and getting over, getting into tech and all that and getting into the channel. And you sort of alluded to it there. You didn't have any IT background and neither did I, but I to go a little bit deeper into the actual opportunity I was discussing without, revealing too many details. But I did bring in someone as an example that is sort of the antithesis of that. I'll preface it with that is I had brought in another provider. Honestly, in plain terms, really blew the call because I'm sitting down with someone who, manages 38 locations and they don't have IT help now. They don't understand anything. And that's why they're here talking to us. And while she's asking questions and I'm trying to bridge the gap and translate technical language, the individual on the call was discussing the differences between, Cisco versus Aruba versus this and she barely understands what a router is. Like
Right.
these are not things that you do. And I really, I really appreciate when I spoke to Daniel and forgive me, I can't remember the other gentleman's name because he's not my direct point of contact. I think he was on the technical side. And they really listened to what I had to say. And at the end they were like, this all sounds awesome, but that's just not something that we do. But I guess where I'm leading to with that is understanding what is it about your background as a person that has brought you to having that sort of ability to just kind of have human level conversations and listen to agents like me because I ramble on about things and you listen to me. And instead of just jumping off of a sales deck after I was done giving my very long winded explanation of who I am and what I do and all that nonsense, you worked from that point on. And I think that's a sales, but also personal, just communication attribute that is not shared. And with that example I gave should be pretty evident.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate that. It's something that, I personally do strive to, both with our partners and with our customers. If we don't understand who we're talking to and what's important to them, how are we going to be able to be effective in, you know, communicating how we can help? And how are we really going to be able to solve the problems that they're having, whether it's, you're looking for partners that do a certain thing or you're looking for a service provider that can fulfill a certain requirement. So prior to me joining the channel, I was in hospitality forever. And I think that that's part of honestly the reason why I got the job initially as just a business development rep. Kind of a funny story. So Ancero found me through a networking event that I was at that my mom had dragged me into. I was bartending, I was managing a coffee shop, I was working for a local builder, doing all these odd jobs when I was like 23. And, she wanted me to start going to these events with her to see how I could, potentially land a more stable career. Met one of the sales reps at Ancero. He was going on and on about voice over IP and MSP and all these acronyms. I truthfully didn't remember him because I didn't understand what he was talking about. He was a very nice man. Him and my mom exchanged cards, and a month later I get a call from my mom saying that this company Ancero reached out to him to try to set up an interview with me for a business development position, and I truthfully thought that it was a joke. And I just kind of said, okay, what do I have to lose? Let's go on the interview. And I met with the managing partner, Paul Boyer, and right off the bat he said to me, he was like, I honestly love that you do not have any technical background and that you are a bartender, because you know what bartenders are good at? Talking to people and building relationships with people. The industry that we are in, we have engineers and you can learn the technical piece. I cannot teach you the human piece. You either have that or you don't. And this is a game of building relationships. You want to build long-term relationships with your partners. You want to build long-term relationships with your customers. And the best way to do that is to meet them where they're at. And I was very intimidated when I first started because I was afraid of that gotcha moment, that somebody was going to ask me a question and I was going to be stumped and they're going to know that I'm a fraud and I know nothing about this industry. And lo and behold, our director of sales at the time, I was speaking at a local chamber event about 4 months in, still had very little knowledge of the industry, had my whole sheet of paper that I was planning on reading off of. And he told me he was, I lost the paper, long story short, lost the paper on the walk over to the event, was panicking. And he stopped me and he told me, he's like, as little as you think you know about IT and voice over IP. I guarantee you know more than everybody else in that room. So keep it simple, keep it high level. And I went in there and I spoke and nobody, you know, nobody really knew the wiser. And that kind of is what changed it for me, where I realized that most people don't understand this industry. And I just remember being trained by our engineers and telling me how this was high level and how this was super simple stuff. And I had, to your point of your contact and your customer not knowing what a router was, they're going over infrastructure with me and how the firewall connects to the switch to the server and then the connectivity. And I'm sitting there with my eyes glazed over. I'm like, this is simple. I'm like, I don't understand what any of this stuff is or what it does. So I've always tried to lean into the personal aspect of what I loved about hospitality is talking to people, meeting new people, sharing stories, and carrying that over into this and just, really taking the time to listen and learn, to hear what's important to people and trying to give them relevant information If they need to get into the technical weeds, I have my engineers for that, and I will gladly pull them into a call and we can get as technical as you want, but that's not my job. My job is to build that relationship and build that comfort level and help us understand how we can work together and how we can be of service to you.
I think that's what is obviously made you and Sarah evidently they're of the same mindset. So that's made them successful as well. And they are a family-owned
It
business,
is
if I remember
privately
correctly,
held
right?
for 26 years.
And I mentioned that because, it's important. I work with a lot of small businesses, myself, and I prefer to work with those family-owned businesses. They present a different level of challenges in working with them, as you can imagine, versus working with a corporate hierarchy structure. You're working with, the brother or the uncle or something like that. And it's a different navigation process through decisions and approvals and things like that. Everybody has their own thing that they're concerned about or they don't like or they love or whatever it is. So it's important to navigate that. But I also mention it because as you were speaking, it was reminding me of a time long ago when I was working through college at it was a retail, we'll call it an appliance center, and I was selling I think it was like a $9,000 barbecue to a visitor, and the it was a husband and wife, and the wife ended up saying like, "Hey, to Jack, like offer this guy a job," and like they handed me a card, and they happened to be a very large manufacturing company based here on the island, but also have global locations, and they were offering me essentially a job when I got out of college in sales at their company because it was doing the same thing. Like I was really just asking them questions about what they want when they walk in, like, "Hey." I don't tell them about the feature or this metal and versus this corrosion. I was just like, what are you guys looking for in this appliance? Like, why are you here? Why are you not just buying it online? What just coming in and asking for the one you want? And you start going into these questions and getting to know them, getting to understand them. I start talking about recipes for and stuff like that. It's just having an actual conversation, and that's what I really enjoy doing. And what you find out is that maybe sometimes people are not they don't have the same needs as someone else. Whereas, for instance, somebody might say, I absolutely cannot have a single moment of downtime, and all I care about is that you have this policy you can put on here, which may be someone that I would be talking to. At a more technical level, maybe at that person, I'm talking about, packet encapsulation in the OSI model to prove that I know what I'm talking about and give them some sort of confidence that I am educated in the ways that they want to be. But then there's other people who are just like, for instance, a client of mine, they're like, I love that I can call Frank. Frank's a local voice provider here around the area. And like they were having an issue, like things do happen if,
Yeah.
inevitably with technology. And their expectation wasn't like it always has zero issues. It was just like, who can I actually talk to when something is going wrong and they want to know them by name, they want a cell phone number, or they want a direct contact. And I know you had mentioned that you guys have a support system that sort of mirrors that approach. So can you tell us a little bit about the Ancero support
Yeah.
methods?
No, so we try to be very transparent and very accommodating. Like you said, it's technology, it's not perfect, it's going to break, there's going to be problems. It's of how you respond to those problems. So, we try to do as much first call resolution as we can with the initial help desk, right? The initial call. If we can solve it quickly, initially we want to, and then of course we have the level 1, level 2, level 3, all those different resources. We're a team of about 45 people and the majority of them are engineers. So we're very engineering heavy from that regard, but something that we think kind of stands out a little bit from other MSPs is that we actually provide all of our customers with an escalation chart, and that escalation chart gives them the ability to bypass the typical support line, the support email address, opening a ticket. All those things are important, right? We're always going to initiate a ticket anytime a customer calls in with a request so that we can track it, we can manage it, assign the right resources to it. But this escalation chart gives them direct contact to our service manager as the first line of defense, our director of client services, who sits above our service manager, who's really the customer contact and the customer liaison. From there, it goes up to the director of engineering, who's one of the managing partners at the company. and it ultimately ends with the managing partner who oversees operations and finance. We freely give that to all of our customers so that if any point in time there's frustration or there's something that they just need to communicate over and above the person answering the phone, they have the ability to pick up the phone and call the service manager directly so that they can say, hey, we submitted this ticket. Here's some backstory. There's maybe a little bit more urgency than was initially conveyed, or, maybe they're just feeling frustrated. Maybe it's something like a printer issue that doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but maybe that printer is printing payroll checks and it's Friday and they have to get this solved as soon as possible so that checks can go out before the end of the day. So if we don't give our customers that access and that ability and that transparency to call those people, that's where some of that resentment and those frustrations start to kind of bubble up. Because again, we want to be a partner, not just a vendor, right? Chances are they're already going to have our director of client services contact information where they know because she's communicated to them, call me if you need anything. And it goes a long way because it's a people business, right? People aren't calling into our help desk because everything's great. There's something wrong. It's preventing them from working. They're frustrated. They don't really want to hear, I don't know what the problem is. They just want it fixed. And while the nature of the business, some things are more complex than others, and some things unfortunately just take more time to resolve. Our team does a really good job of doing that hand holding. We like to say that we treat our small business customers like they're Fortune 500. It doesn't matter to us if somebody is 20 people, 200 people, 500 people. We treat them all the same with the same level of attentiveness and collaboration, really, to make sure that things are being resolved and communicated at a timely manner.
Yeah, it's funny because I have a client that uses the word, it has to be perfect. It has to be perfect. This is through a service that I had recommended that they were in need of that I don't provide. It's totally not even technology related. It's just like call it an event service, right? So it's actually a photo booth company. So, and they were like, these people need to be perfect. I'm like, well, it's my dad's company, so if it doesn't go great, I'll take care of it for you, which is
How they
somewhere within the same lines of having that escalation list. And I could see that being a self-reinforcing, uh, we'll call it a check and balance on the internal systems. It's like, hey, it's great to have the escalation list, but if it starts to get used, then there's an issue. And the director of engineering starts getting calls. It's like, let's kick it down to what's the problem down here, and I'm sure it actually gets fixed and
Yeah,
addressed and reinforced so it doesn't happen
certainly the
next time.
director of engineering is fix it most of the time. If it's a high level issue, he's definitely involved. But yeah, sometimes it's just giving them the peace of mind that, the right people are aware and are making sure that the right person is assigned to handle the issue, because we have a great team and they all have different qualifications and they all have different strengths. So, that's really the key to all of it, is making sure that the right people are involved to solve the right problems. And certainly it's something, as far as I know, that really isn't abused because, we try to over communicate, and, it's something that just gives people that reassurance that, especially if they're used to, like you use the example of, your local guy Frank. They're used to a Frank where they pick up the phone and Frank comes on site and Frank's going to tinker around for a few hours. They'll get a bill later and all is well and good. It's different when you're picking up the phone and you don't have that tangible person that you can talk to and that you can reference, like, I'm going to call him and he'll fix it. So we try to take extra pride in being very communicative with them through the support process so that they know that we're on it and they know that we're fixing it, because it is a change for a lot of small businesses to go from, that kind of a relationship to a service that they're paying for monthly that's mostly remote. We certainly go on site if we need to. If we can't fix it remotely, we have those resources both locally and nationally to get smart hands out and do installs and, things like that. 95% of what we can do can be done remotely. So it's a matter of really holding their hands, especially through those first few months where it is a transition for them. They aren't used to getting support this way. They feel like, okay, I'm submitting a ticket. Now I'm not going to hear anybody for a couple days, when they quickly realize, "Oh, I submitted a ticket, I heard from somebody in an hour, and, this problem was solved pretty quickly and simply, and now I'm not getting a surprise bill. We're just, it's like an insurance policy for your IT, right? You're paying for it
Yeah.
on a monthly basis. Do you want to be getting into a car accident every month? No, but you have car insurance anyway, because when you do need it, you want to know that you have somebody in your corner that can swing into action and get it resolved quickly, which is why we include unlimited remote support as part of our service. We don't want to nickel and dime people. We don't want them to feel like they can't call us because it's a small issue and they don't want to get billed for it. Call us for anything big and small. It's all included. We're there as much as they need us. Hopefully, if we're doing our job properly, we're not hearing from them 10, 15, 20 times a month. But if there's a month where, there's a lot of hiccups, then, we're there and they don't have to worry about not being able to get the support they need because they don't want to get any surprise bills.
I like the term that you used there, which is peace of mind, and that means different things to different people. A lot of you could talk, technologies like SD-WAN, right? Oh, we'll put in dual circuits, and you'll 99.999% uptime, and it's a managed service. Well, that's great, but what happens when the switch fails and you have to go through a troubleshooting process and then it takes 48 hours for the new switch to go out? It's like you want to know the person you're talking to
Yeah,
is going to get that part resolved because the technology itself, regardless, again, is always going to have
it
problems.
is. It is.
And I give you an example of a poor experience, which I like to do. And I never name the names of these companies, but I'm dealing with a financial institution right now for my business, and I had an issue with logging into the app. I had to have a multi-factor authentication, and I chose to go with the Authenticator app for whatever reason. It's not showing up in the Authenticator app, and every time I log in, the password's correct, and it tells me go to the Authenticator app, and I just can't get around it, right? So I'm now talking to service representatives and multiple conversations over several days, and they all keep telling me IT is going to reach out. IT is going to reach out. It's been now 6 days, and I just got the email this morning right before we got on this call, and the email says, "Oh, thank you so much for your patience." Blah 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 blah. And this is the reason, for the email, and it tells me to call back to support to find out what they found out, and I'm like, what is that? Like, that is the dumbest thing I could possibly imagine. And sometimes you run into that sort of thing at the very bottom of the email, it says, automated by Airtable, right? And it's an automated email. So someone clicked a box and a drop down, chose single select and chose to close, and it just pushed out this little ticket. And I'm like, why can't you just configure a row that they put the solution in, and then that's part of the email as an
Right.
automation, right? Little things, but that's where you start dealing with larger companies, maybe even larger MSPs that have these convoluted chains of command, and that escalation list is the internal team has their own escalation list of people just to get to the next step
Right.
versus dealing with someone like yourselves for what you guys do, manage IT, manage communications, that you can actually just get a human being, let them take care of it, you communicate properly, and then if it doesn't go to plan, it moves up the chain.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, like, yes, we're an IT company, but at the end of the day, it's customer service. We're nothing without our customer service. It is probably the number one thing that I hear on calls with prospective customers. They're not moving away from their current company because service is fantastic. 9 times out of 10, they're either slow to respond or just flat out unresponsive and uncommunicative, where they know that there's got to be something better out there. So we try, if we do right by our customers and we're communicating and we're being patient with them and understanding, we're not getting frustrated with them on the phone, we're not um being dismissive or, sighing it, oh, you're having a problem with this. Oh, like we don't do any of that. Like we support small business, and that could be anywhere from a company that has 5 to 500 people, 10 to 500 people. Those aren't, some are fairly sizable companies, but most of them aren't. Most of them are, you know, your 25, 50, 75 person companies where people are calling and they're frustrated. And our job is to ease that frustration. And if we're nothing without customer service, and we've been fortunate enough to have, over the last 26 years, we have customers that have been with us for 10, 15, 20 years at this point. They're not staying with us because there's no other options out there. There's plenty of MSPs and there's plenty of managed communication providers out there. They stay with us because they know that we're a true partner to them. We know that they know that we care, and they get good support from us. They get to know our team, and it goes a long way because they're not just a number in the machine. They're part of the family at this point. They've been around us forever, and it's one of the reasons why we're so not eager but willing, I would say, when we're talking to prospective customers to share references, because MSPs, as we know, we're a dime a dozen. There's a million of us out there, and it's so easy for us to sit on these sales calls and say, hey, we're great and we're going to give great support. And, it's easy to say those things, but it's another thing entirely to talk to somebody who's been a customer for, maybe they've only been a customer for a couple of years, maybe they've been a customer for 10 or 15 years, but allowing those prospects to have conversations with our customers to hear exactly what their experience has been kind of validates that, because it's always a little bit more credible coming from a third party than directly from us ourselves.
Is 100%. I'm in the process right now of developing some case studies for print. I like to do a lot more of my outreach, both in person as through as direct mails, and I'm writing out these case studies. While I have permission from my clients to use their names and use their logos, I also don't want to be plastering their names
Right.
everywhere and also presenting security risks and issues to expose the types of technologies that they have going on. So I do have that as available by request, but it's that thing of, I just met you, you just met me. It all sounds great, but like what happens when we go on the first date? Like what happens after the second date? That little honeymoon phase is over, which is that initial discovery call where they do the quote unquote dog and pony show, right? I think being able to speak to someone and having those references is the cornerstone of trust building, because I can walk into a business and say, "Hey, I can provide you with managed network services and replace your camera system here, and I'll do it all for free if you let me save you money on payment processing." And that may sound like a too good to be true thing, but really it's just a generous offer. And I'm trying to build a scalable business that is built on actual value to customers. But when they hear that, they go, okay, well, who's this guy? Right? He just walked into my business, and how do I know I can trust him? It's like, here, by the way, here are people that already do it and they already have it. Let me just introduce you to them if you're serious about this, and they'd be happy to vouch for me.
Yeah. And it's part of the reason why and I love that approach because it's so true. It's part of the reason I love the channel so much is because, especially in the world of being an MSP, there's a reason why we don't internally do a lot of direct sales, because it's really hard to walk into a business and say, hey, let us look at all your infrastructure and your cybersecurity, and let us take a look at the keys to your business. Basically, like, people can get a little spooked and they're like, I don't know you. You could be, like, I don't trust any of this. Like, we're good. And the beauty of the channel is that those relationships are already somewhat established, right? Where somebody's working with you because they trust you, they know you, they like you. You've helped them in the past, you've helped save them money on their payment processing, to where they know that they can go to Daniel and say, hey, what about this? And if it's not something you can do directly, they trust you enough that, whoever Daniel brings to the table is somebody that I know is going to be credible. And it helps ease, not all of it by any means, but a good amount of it, where their guards down a little bit, and we can have you know, more of a collaborative and consultative discussion where we're really taking the time to understand their business first and foremost, what's important to them, what's working, what's not working. So that, to the point that you started this whole conversation with, if there's something that doesn't line up for us, we want to tell them right off the bat. And maybe it's the whole thing, maybe it's a piece of it, maybe it's, hey, this all sounds great. We can help you, manage your infrastructure, manage your people, help with, Microsoft and getting you up to the cloud, making sure that there's security. But as far as like access control on your systems and managing things like that, like, lean on Daniel. Daniel will find somebody else that can help you with that piece, because we don't need to be everything to everybody. If there's something that we're not confident in or something that we just don't do, it's never going to serve us well to say yes to those opportunities, go down the road. It's going to be a bad experience for the customer. It's going to be a bad experience for you, the agent. Ultimately, it's going to be harmful for us from an operational standpoint and a reputation standpoint, because it's as big as this industry is, it is very small in the sense that everybody talks and word travels fast. And we don't want to be known as the company that's, constantly signing contracts and then just disappearing or not able to fulfill the work, or it's a 6-month implementation that we just can't seem to figure out because it's really not something that we do. So the more dialogue and consultation we can have with the customer upfront, the more of a successful engagement we can have. We want to spend a lot of time and money upfront before they're even a customer to assess their current environment, take a look at what they have, take a look at their emails, their storage, how people are accessing data, so that we know exactly what we're walking into. If there's things that need to be cleaned up or there's chronic problems that need to be fixed, we want to know what those are up front so that we can have a plan to clean those up day one, because it's not going to do us any good stepping into a customer who has a big mess that from day one they're going to be blowing up our help desk with 5 calls a day because there's these chronic problems. It's why we want to spend so much time and money upfront doing that dialogue, and it helps them get to know us as much as us getting to know them. We're building that relationship. It's more than just, we're a service provider for them. We really do want to be a true partner. We want to know what's going on in their business. Are you adding locations? Are you growing? Are you scaling and opening up in a new territory? What's that going to look like from a budgeting perspective? What about your infrastructure and your support contracts and your warranties, your cyber liability insurance? You're going through the audit. You got a checklist. Let us look at that and make sure that you're doing all the right things so that we can make sure they're getting the best possible coverage they can. Those are all things that we want to do at no cost, right? That's all just part of our service. We call that our virtual CIO, where it's not just doing that due diligence on the front end prior to them coming on board as a customer. It's once they're a customer, how do we retain them and how do we continue to add value as a partner? And it's something that we pull you into as well, so that, as things come up where they're like, hey, well, we're looking to revamp security cameras, we say, great, go back to Daniel. Daniel's your guy. He's going to help you either directly or indirectly. Anything like that that falls outside of our scope, we always want to pull the partner back in, to give them the opportunity to continue to grow that relationship and grow that account as well.
Love it. I absolutely love it. I always say, my own definition. I do things in sales calls that are also not recommended, and that is for that exact reason. Like you guys, you turned basically away an opportunity, which I'm sure you would have been able to, execute to some level, but you're like, you know what, this is not our wheelhouse. This is not what we do on a daily basis. We don't want to step outside the lane. We don't want to shift processes and break the systems and workflows that we have. But I always say to them, like, look, business is sales, and sales is an exchange of value at an agreed upon set of expectations. That is the lowest, simplest way that you can describe any interaction that involves a signature or an exchange of resources. This person is going to pay me for something. They better be understanding what they're getting out of it and how they're going to get it. And that works in a circle, which I call like the little channel circle of trust, right? That's between what you tell me to what I promise my clients. And that's what it is. It's a promise. They're hearing it from me. It's my word on there. I am a trusted advisor and a managed service provider myself. And if I am coming up short on my claims because of something that a supplier has said, it puts me in a bad spot. And
Right.
hence why the first person I brought in for another opportunity is never coming back. And I'm not going to get to it. But it's a different story. I mean, this is coming directly from people. I mean, my clients are, one thing about my business is, I think I told you on our last call, like, I love and hate the word scale. I hate the motivations behind scale sometimes. Obviously, everybody, I'm in a business here, one of my own, and, aiming to replace high salaries and commissions and, go beyond that and provide for my family and do all that stuff. But I'm not doing it at the expense of why I started the business. I have dropped a client, but then gone golfing with them the next week because I said, hey, look, we ended up in a place where you're not getting what you think you should be getting. And I think there was a little bit of a miscommunication during the process. Let me grab you somebody that can. I'd rather give up your business to get you what you want so we can maintain our relationship and we can
Yeah.
just go separate ways in that way, because my ultimate goal is here to help you. And if you're not satisfied in that, or the same way that you denied the opportunity, then the ultimate goal is not being achieved. So I always complicate the sale to make sure they understand what they're getting. If they're not getting enough out of it, I say, "Are you gonna be happy paying me every month?" And if they can't say yes, then I don't do it.
No, it's a two-way street, and I love that, I love that approach as well because it just we're nothing without our reputation. And, sometimes, doing the thing that you don't want to do is what's going to yield the best results, and that's passing up an opportunity or passing up a potential client because you can't give them what they're looking for. And people respect that because there's a time and a place to be a yes man and just say yes to everything, kind of figure it out. But it's going to catch up in the end because it's going to result in, a poor experience, and especially everything that you're building. I love your philosophy behind all of it, where, we're definitely like-minded in that regard.
Well, I think that's why the next opportunity, hopefully, we'll be working on it together. And those should be coming shortly as I get more of these podcasts out to my clients and to the community. I think we have covered, actually, there was one other thing before I jump off
Yeah.
here. There's another thing you mentioned on the call of, sometimes you're not working with completely non technical folks, right? Sometimes these small businesses do have an IT team, but you're there to just augment the service. So I wanted to hear your sort of approach to working with existing IT teams as an augmentation layer, and you also mentioned there was some tool that you provide to them.
No, absolutely. So we take on any engagement with the mentality of we can be as much or as little as they need. And in some cases, like we mentioned previously, they have nothing. We're everything for them, and that's great. In other instances, we have customers that either have an IT director or a systems admin or even a small team of 5 to 10 people that are helping manage things. And it can look really a number of different ways. We really want to co-manage this alongside them. We're not in the business of saying, well, if you hire us, you don't need them anymore, because it's just not the case. Because we're primarily remote, and again, we do have the ability to go on site, but having that on-site team there, those are our happiest customers because we want to bring them into the fold in a number of different ways. We want to give them access to our tool sets. That's going to be our RMM platform, where they have the ability to remote into a machine, check patch status, see what's installed on any given computer, check the health of the network. Like that's kind of the single pane of glass that we use to manage all of our customers. They have access to that, so they can get in there as much as they need and take a look at whatever they need. They also have access to IT Glue, which is what we use for our electronic runbook. That is where all the customer credentials are stored. We are a SOC 2 Type 2 certified provider. We have been since 2018. So all these tools that we use check those compliance boxes. So we're not one of those MSPs that's going to hold credentials hostage from them. Their IT resource has the ability to go in at any point in time and pull server credentials, firewall credentials, switch credentials, Microsoft credentials, whatever they need without us having to gatekeep that. Us holding credentials hostage from somebody is not going to stop them from either shopping another MSP or taking a closer look at what's going on. If we're doing our job right, we should have nothing to hide, which is why we don't hide anything. So they have access to all those tools. They also have read-only access into our PSA ticketing system, so they can follow along. We do charge an additional licensing cost if they want to co-author tickets. But if they're that hands-on, most companies that are bringing us on are more than willing to give that piece up where they don't want to be involved in working tickets directly. We have a couple that do, and we give them that access where we can co-author tickets. They can, jump in alongside us and really work in tandem to resolve an issue. We also have customers where that internal team is maybe managing just the infrastructure or just the desktops, and we're being brought in to supplement that, where they're like, our users are super simple. They're all in an office. If somebody has a password reset, our guys will just walk down the hall and help them directly. We don't need to bother you with that. So we're just managing the infrastructure at that time. And again, they still have these tools that they can use. We also use a product called ScalePad that ties into the RMM platform that helps us with lifecycle management, warranties, support contracts, maintenance agreements. Every serial number is tagged so that we're able to really pull reports and give them anything and everything that they need on demand. It's not a tool that they have access to because it's a global tool, right? All of our customers' information is in there, so we can't give individual customers access. but they can see a lot of that information through the RMM platform. And then our managed SOC SIM service also integrates into that RMM platform, which they can also have access to on the security side, where it's a third party SOC that's doing all the monitoring, it's ingesting all the log files. If it sees something, it's automatically going to open up a ticket in our PSA and our team does the remediation. So they have visibility into almost all of these tools to where we can really collaborate and co-manage this alongside them while leveraging them as needed as that on-site resource to save them money from not having to pay additional labor costs or on-site costs and really helping supplement that team, right? Their team grows from a handful of people to 40 people overnight where you don't have to worry about somebody going on vacation or taking time off where, what are they going to do in that week or two period that somebody IT person might be out? Where with us, we're there 24/7, 365, as much or as little as they need us.
Love I think you guys have a great model set up. I don't think there's any question why you guys have been so successful, and I'm looking forward to partnering on future opportunities, and
Wow.
hopefully that will be sooner than later. But I think we have covered everything that I had planned to cover. Everyone should have a very good idea who Megan is, who Ancero is, what you guys do, and how you do it. So if there's anything you would like to add, feel free. Otherwise, we can sign off.
Yeah, the only thing I'll close with is definitely so our local channel manager resource is Daniel Cronin. I'm here as a support person for all of our channel team. He's a great person to, be involved on really a day-to-day level with, right? Like he lives in the state of New Jersey. He's available to go to events, have lunches, physically go meet with people and build those relationships. I'm here really because of your connection with him. So I just wanted to call him out as, as we wrap this up, as kind of that point of contact. If there's anything that anybody needs from Ancero, he's your guy. He'll pull in myself, our engineering resources, all the right people, even our channel chief to kind of help with that initial relationship building. So, we very much lean into the team approach here. So I just wanted to call that out before we signed off.
Excellent. It's always good to have a clear path and a CTA.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Megan. It was
Thank you
great
so
getting to
much,
know you
Daniel.
further. And
It's been great.
yes, likewise.